No one inside Windsor expected the birthday candle smoke to drift this far. Prince George has just turned 12, old enough, the courtiers insist, to feel destiny breathing down his neck, yet young enough to wish the world would wait. Tonight, as an amber sunset burns behind the castle, a single remark from King Charles ignites the decision that has haunted the Wales household for months. It's time he learned the rhythm of duty. Every ear in the room stiffens. Charlotte's half-finished lemonade trembles on the tray. Even 8-year-old Louis, usually a swirl of giggles, falls quiet, sensing the tension his parents have failed to hide. Catherine meets William's gaze, her smile carved in porcelain. Not now, her eyes plead. Let him keep his childhood one more season. Yet the clock on the mantel ticks with the imperious certainty of monarchy, and the king's words hang like frost in July. 4-5 breathless seconds, no one speaks. Then, almost casually, Charles adds the detail that cuts straight through Catherine's composure. Eton has a dormitory ready for Michaelmas term. The sentence clangs louder than the Abbey's bells. Eton. The same iron-gated institution that shaped princes, prime ministers and, in secret, broke more hearts than society will ever admit. Catherine feels the floor tilt. She grew up in a warm kitchen scented with lemon sponge, not marble halls echoing with Latin chants. She never once imagined hugging her son goodnight through the bars of a centuries-old boarding rule. William squeezes her hand under the table, 3 reassuring taps, their private code since university days, yet his jaw is tight. He knows the realm expects the heir to follow tradition. He also knows the shadow strain Catherine hides behind her perfect posture, the nausea after chemo, the midnight fears she never voices aloud, the way she circles their children like a lighthouse guarding fragile ships in a moonless sea. And still, tradition marches on. 30 minutes later, the press office is drafting polite statements about the prince's next educational chapter, but inside Adelaide Cottage a quieter drama unfolds. Charlotte tiptoes into her mother's room clutching the new family photo, George in his navy blazer, hair still sun-bleached from Anmer holidays. "Mummy, does George have to go?" she whispers. Catherine, fighting tears, straightens the picture frame. "Sometimes," she replies gently, "the future asks us to be brave before we feel ready." Outside, crickets chirp in the long Windsor grass. Inside, Catherine's heartbeat hammers loud enough to drown them. She remembers the oncologist's words: rest, reduce stress, heal, and catches the bitter irony. The palace is about to remove her eldest, the very heartbeat that steadied her through every 4 drip. 43 hours later, a silver Range Rover slides through Eton's arched gate for a discreet tour. William narrates cheerful histories. This courtyard dates to Henry VI, but George scarcely hears. He notices instead the way prefects stride in packs, the polished trophies glinting like dragon hoards, the faint mildew of centuries-old stone. A master in tales explains the timetable: 6 a.m. runs, Latin declensions before breakfast, chapel at dawn on Sundays. George nods politely, yet a question pounds behind his polite grin. Will I learn to be king here, or just learn to be alone? Back in Windsor that evening, Catherine presses a cool cloth to her temples. Exhaustion blindsides her again, dizzy spell, buzzing ears, the faint taste of metal she never mentions to staff. William wraps her in his arms and mutters, "We can still say no." But she feels the weight of centuries stacking on her shoulders. Elizabeth at 13 reciting scriptures in wartime bunkers, a 10-year-old Charles learning to bow while classmates kicked footballs. "If we refuse," she says, voice barely a thread, "the tabloids will paint us as clinging, weak, selfish. They'll torture him worse." A pause. "I'd rather break my heart in private than let the press break his in public." 3 days pass, and whispers leak. Columnists sniff a Middleton veto versus Crown protocol. Twitter roils. Radio hosts debate whether boarding school is character-building or archaic cruelty. Through it all, Catherine reads every headline, each more acidic than the last, until William confiscates her phone. "We can't fight fog," he says. "Focus on the one voice that matters, George's." So they do. On a drizzly Sunday they hike to Frogmore's hidden orchard, no security, no courtiers, just family and damp grass. Under a gnarled apple tree, William kneels to meet his son eye to eye. "We won't force you," he says. "Tell us what you feel." George stares at his trainers, then at the sky, then at his mother's anxious smile. Finally, quietly, I want to learn how to do the job right. But can I come home on Saturdays? And can I call every night? And please promise Charlotte gets my old room so it doesn't feel empty. Catherine's heart both shatters and mends in that instant. She nods, blinking back tears. William slips a signet ring, tiny, engraved with a discreet G, into George's palm. When it feels too big, he says, closing his son's fingers over the silver, remember it was mine once. And I survived. 2 weeks later the palace releases a measured statement. The Prince and Princess of Wales are delighted to confirm Prince George will enter Eton in September 2026, following a final junior year at Lamrook. Commentators dissect every comma. But beyond the microphones, Catherine tacks a new ritual onto her dawn routine, one picture postcard each morning, handwritten to her eldest, telling him a small story from home: Louis's muddy football goal, Charlotte's charcoal sketch of the corgis, the scent of fresh scones wafting from the Aga. Each postcard slips into a wooden box marked for Eton days. She plans to give him the bundle on move-in morning so he never spends a first night without family stories beside his pillow. Fast forward 6 months. September air smells of sharpened pencils and wet leaves. George, taller now, squared shoulders, marches into Eton's chapel in crisp tails. Flashbulbs fire beyond the gates, but he doesn't flinch. Hidden inside his blazer pocket, the silver ring warms against his heartbeat. In his trunk, a bundle of postcards waits for lonely evenings. Catherine stands just beyond the press line, sunglasses hiding damp eyes. William's steady hand rests at her waist. Ready, he whispers. She exhales. Ready to do hard things for the right reasons. The chapel door swings shut. The organ thunders. And somewhere deep inside Windsor, a mother counts the seconds until Saturday, when a Range Rover will return her boy, if only for 24 hours, to the cottage that still smells of lemon sponge and childhood. But the story doesn't pause here. Because a fortnight later, King Charles's doctors whisper urgent advice about pacing his schedule, Princess Anne quietly drafts contingency plans, and an unexpected envelope arrives at Adelaide Cottage bearing the royal seal of Marlborough College. Charlotte's turn, perhaps, to choose her path. Catherine opens it with steady fingers, her reflection clear in the wax, a woman who thought she might break, discovering instead that love stretches but does not tear. So when the headlines flare again, Wales children face separate schools. Is the family fracturing? Catherine finally smiles at the sensationalism, sets down the paper, and writes the next postcard. Dear George, today the hydrangeas finally bloomed. They waited until you were away so you'd have something spectacular to see on Saturday. Some things, you see, save their best surprise until just before you come home. And somewhere beyond Eton's ancient walls, a 12-year-old future king reads those words under moonlight, realizing destiny may be heavy, but it arrives cushioned by the quiet courage of a mother who refused to let distance dim devotion, no matter what history, headlines, or even the crown demanded.